Rochester, New York, up in my neck of the woods. And brother, let's talk a little bit about first the Sarnetta TV Awards. Will you be coming down for that?
Yes, hopefully.
Good. What is it that draws you to Brother Sarnetta's channel in particular?
What draws me into the Sarnetta channel in particular is the knowledge. You know, sometimes it make you laugh when you watch some of the episodes. It's like watching TV to me.
Right.
So it's pretty entertaining and knowledgeable.
Before I forget, who are some of the teachers that you like when you watch Sarnetta TV? Like, who's your favorite?
My favorite, probably Sarnetta. You know, even though he don't talk much, but he still got a lot of knowledge.
That's right.
I like watching Red Pill. I like watching him spit. He got bars. Blue Pill, Sankofa, everybody. Even Sutek. I miss Sutek.
I do too. Peace and Black Power. Welcome to another edition of BABATV.
Fire every time.
Every time, fire. Every time, fire. Back in the building with my big brother Blue Pill. It's my absolute pleasure every time he's in the building to bless us with some pertinent information. And Blue Pill, I want to start with talking about the Juice Crew. The golden era, the 80s and the 90s of rap. Big Daddy Kane, the X-Clan, Steezo, Poor Righteous Teachers, and Roxanne Shantae, Marley Marl, MC Shan, all the dancers, just the whole art back in the days when New York City had told everybody take off the gold chains and put on the gold brains, and we was doing it too.
Yeah, we had the medallions on, you know what I'm saying? And 125th was the epicenter of that culture. You could feel it. I remember coming out here for Harlem Week. I remember the concerts, you know what I'm saying? I remember the shit getting shot up, but still, like, the vibes was real. The people was out because, you know, it was the juxtaposition of the crack era was here, but then our people was getting into their black pride. It was infectious out here. You know what I'm saying? I remember everybody had their black medallions on, and you feel me? It was.
Everybody had their Africa pieces.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. They had the Africa pieces. They had the black medallions. They had the flags on. It was just a beautiful thing. You know what I'm saying? It was a beautiful place. This was the village. Harlem was definitely the village. You know, Brooklyn with the Fulton Street for the African Street Festival and all of that. It was the essence. Like, you really got a feeling of what quote unquote wall-to-wall melanated quote unquote blackness felt like. You know what I'm saying? It was definitely a good time to be in the building, absorbing all of those vibrations, because just like the light spectrum grows these plants, and then you absorb the plants and eat the plants and absorb that spectrum of light, it's the same way that hip-hop raised us. We still got them spectrums of light in us, you know what I'm saying? We was raised off of that, you know? For some of us, it might be real deep down, and it might be muddied and covered by a bunch of other stuff, but it's still in us. For some of us as well, it might be on the surface, and you see it shine through every now and then. You know, twinthealbum.com, I got some music coming out, and that's reflective of that cocoon that I was raised in, you know, that I was nourished in. I will never forget that element. And then the necessity of it, you know what I mean? You know, hip-hop started out in the dark, in the parks, you know, so we really owe it, you know what I'm saying? We really owe it to that time period, you feel me? I remember living on 153rd and St. Nick, you know, and damn, they deep. You see them? Look, that's hip hop. You see that? That's hip hop. That's hip hop. You dig what I'm saying? Yeah. That's youth rebellion. That's the energy. That's what hip hop represents. They're not being destructive. They're being recreational. They're actually exercising, biking. That's fitness. Who does that anymore? They're not at home on PlayStation. You feel me? This is the contingency. You see all different types of people. You know what I mean? That's what hip hop does. It brings them together. It gives them a sense of commonality. Somebody's teaching and somebody's learning. You dig what I'm saying? So that's the essence, man. I was about to say, I remember living on 153rd and St. Nick's, and they had the dirt bikes. You know what I'm saying? Outpour and all of them dudes, Rich Porter and all of them used to be over there throwing it up. Peace God. Rooftop was right over there. You know what I'm saying? Right down the block. Used to hear all of the beats and the vibrations. Friday night, I was too small. I couldn't go to none of them joints. But you hear the vibrations. You know what I'm saying? Public Enemy was playing. KRS-One was playing. Eric B was playing. Hip hop, man. All of the Juice Crew was playing. Well, it was very difficult at that particular point in time because, you know, KRS-One had came through and caused a controversy, if you will. He was trolling Marley Marl. Yeah, son. KRS-One was the first troll in hip hop. He was trolling the Juice Crew.
That is right.
Yeah. So, what else?
And not only that, he put that reggae, that bass, and the elements, and mixed it with the hip hop, and talk about Red Alert and how a part of the segment was dedicated to the Shabba Ranks, the reggae, and the hip hop. It was all blending in there together. The bass, we need to get back to that. What happened today with that bass, that very thunderous bass, like Onyx kept that in there. Kept that bass, that real bassy. We got to bring that back, that bass.
Yeah. The bass is essential, you know what I'm saying? And actually what they call trap music right now, that's sub bass. You understand? Bass migrated to the south. You know, at first it went all the way down to the bottom, to Miami. And Africa Mbata and the Zulu Nation was partially responsible. They were accredited with being responsible for that. But now what you see in Atlanta with trap music, that's sub-bass music. You know what I'm saying? That's why it's very hard for people to get away from it. They might not bump with mumble rap. They might not like trap music. When that sub-bass hits them, boom. Right? They can't stand still. They have to respond in some way. So the bass that we grew up on, that we're used to, it has mutated itself into sub-bass. And the genre is known as trap rap. So very recently, last week they released the Roxanne, which was a movie about the life and times of Roxanne Shantae, who can identifiably be called the first quote-unquote female rapper. And it came at a very interesting time. You know, this is a time when there's this whole controversy and conversation about who's on top of their game in New York City when it comes to hip-hop. You know, and they have this one individual with rainbow hair named Tekashi 6ix9ine. Yes. He's saying he's the king of New York. And then people are coming at him and they're like, whoa, what about Cardi B? You know, she's a monstrosity out here. You know what I'm saying? And hip-hop's 44th year of existence is very telling that a female hip-hop coming out of the Bronx is on top of their game. But at the same time, the first female MC coming out of Queensbridge for that matter, she has her documentary, or her movie for that matter. She's captured the attention of the world to tell her story. And not only is it a story about the early days and the origins of hip hop, but it's also about domestic abuse. It's also about, you know, these relationships that have been taking place in the households with single parents. In particular, you know, the women and their children, you know what I'm saying? And the non-availability of black males in the household. So there's some very interesting ground being covered in that movie. I would definitely recommend that the people check that out. You know what I mean? Wasn't the greatest acting, you know what I'm saying? But that's neither here nor there. You feel me? It was still a wonderful opportunity to get some history lessons, you know? So yeah, please check that out, y'all.
And the great storyteller, Slick Rick, Cool G Rap, that even with the gangster type of vibe that Cool G Rap gave, it was still a method, right? Yeah, speak to that.
Yeah. Cool G Rap gave you responsible gangsterism, and rather than even boistering and telling the stories as if he was snitching on himself, telling his own autobiography, right? Because that's what it would be considered back then. He was narrating the stories of the streets. He was a street narrator. Even though you feel like, okay, you know, you kind of know that he probably got down and he got busy and he was close enough to the smoke to know what it smelled like, but yet and still, he was still responsible enough to not only tell you the story from a perspective where it wasn't directly him, but he was also giving you consequences. He was painting scenarios. So you have to balance gangsterism out because it's not all beautiful. You dig what I'm saying? Slick Rick, you know, we know that he is the storyteller. He was one of the greatest storytellers in our days and times, you know, lyrically wise. So this is what we grew up. This is the essence of, you know, the fertile bedding, you know what I'm saying? We were the seeds that went into that dirt, but that was the fertilizer. So these brothers were very responsible for developing our psychology, developing our neurological system of reasoning, and how we can go about not only reasoning, you know what I'm saying, but putting what we observe on a daily into narrative. You know what I mean? Creating new words, flipping words, being alchemists with our approach to all of the things that previously would be somewhat, what's the word I'm looking for? The word that I'm intimidated, you know? Like I remember being in school and there were certain words to me that were intimidating. But I remember how KRS-One used them in a rhyme. And I'll be like, yo, KRS-One used it like this. I'm going to put it in a sentence like that. And get a 99 on the test. Oh, a lot to hip hop. You feel me? Especially that hip hop that's edutational. You know what I mean? You have your entertainment and you have your education. It's a perfect blend. Like we really owe a lot to our teachers. And those were our teachers. You know how now they say, well, your child goes to school for X amount of hours out of the day, but it's the parents' responsibility to give them a level of education afterwards, right? All of us didn't have that in our household, but we had hip-hop. We had the teachers in hip-hop where we could actually turn music on, be entertained. We could go to Video Music Box. I remember seeing My Philosophy with KRS-One where, you know, it was like it was a high school course. All that. It was a high school course. It was a full plate. You feel me? We don't have access to that information because the teachers have stopped teaching. So this generation, they not getting the information in school. They not getting the information after school. So we can't even step back and judge and be like, yo, why the generation is lost? Why they act like this? Why they act like that? Who are they teachers? Who's teaching them? Who's putting on, right? What station can they turn on, whether it be a video station or whether it be the music, where they like, yo, whatever I don't know or what I need to know, I can get it in the form of a song, right? They're not getting any of that, you know what I mean? So hip-hop has failed them in that respect, but that's on us, that's not on them. You dig what I'm saying? That's on us. We let go, you know, we dropped the ball when it came to that, keeping that spirit alive.
Do you think this sampling played a part in the destruction of that original art form? Because we know we weren't stealing any of the music. Most of the entertainers didn't have a problem with us sampling the music and the energy that it took a lot of those 60s artists, James Brown, when they was in their right state of mind, the big payback, and then we would reinvigorate that energy.
It served as a detriment to the growth of particular genres of hip-hop, you know, in particular, like, you know, consciousness, because they would use a lot of samples. It also, I think, it served to the detriment of the older artists whose catalogs were being reintroduced to younger audience, and they were given opportunities to be financially compensated from the new wave. It also served as a detriment for the fact that these young men who already had daddy issues, already, you know what I'm saying, was looking at the elders crazy because of their own personal space. Then they looking at these artists like, well, goddamn, I can't eat. You holding my whole album or my project up because you won't clear this sample? Well, fuck you then. You know what I'm saying? So our people just became a lot less appreciative and a lot less conforming and a lot less, you know what I'm saying, accommodating for that matter to the elders and the elder artists, and for that matter the art form as well. They just kind of push it out of the way and they say, look, if y'all not gonna clear these samples, y'all not gonna let us eat, we're gonna do our own thing. And that has led to a lot of creativity by way of, you know, artists that have totally, because there's artists that was like, look, I'm gonna learn how to hide the sample, I'm gonna learn how to recreate the sample, I'm gonna learn how to flip the sample. That level of ingenuity, right, in the spirit of thievery has led to other artists to come about with new art forms or new ways of making beats or new sounds. You know what I'm saying? But it's still a detriment because the older artists had opportunities not only to eat, but to be introduced to a new generation and to allow that bridge to be open. Because imagine an artist of today would say, that's my mentor, that's my big homie, you know what I mean, that's somebody I can look to for information. All of that has been cut off. So it's almost like we continuously are starting over and over and over again, and we don't have the benefit of reaching out to elders. Case in point, like, there are artists that are getting worse deals than they were getting back when Cadillac Records was around. How is that happening? How are artists still being fleeced by Jewish mafia? You understand? When this was happening in the 50s and the 60s, artists, how is it even possible for hip hop to be taken if the artists, our young hip hop artists, could have been in contact with the R&B greats and the jazz greats and all of these people who they were getting samples from, who were living off of pennies at that time, could have told them, look, make sure that you got this paperwork right. Make sure that you got that paperwork right. Make sure that you got this right. You're publishing, you're this, you're that. All of that would have benefited the genre and the art form, but we kind of like missed out on all of that, you know what I mean, through the breakdown of communication.
Yeah, because I think that a lot of the brothers and sisters that was in hip hop back then brought back a lot of the old school. And if it wasn't for them, I think I heard Stetsasonic say that Daddy O said, well, if it wasn't for us, we might have forgot.
Absolutely. I had the benefit of growing up, you know, with that music in my household. I had a deep appreciation for it. And I loved hearing when artists were able to blend those worlds, because I know that it was feeding and teaching other youngsters that didn't have exposure to that about our history. You know what I'm saying? They were giving them all sorts of, you know, sonic backdrops. And with those backdrops came history, because it's connected to a story to say, yo, this is what this artist was doing in the 50s. This is what they was going through. This is where they from. This is what that song was about. This song was charting. It was big here. They was doing this. They was doing the jitterbug to it. You know what I mean? All of the history that goes along. These songs are not just songs. Melanated music in America is the timestamp of who and where we are at a particular time period. So those songs are like digital archives of our people, of our being, of our time. So when you bring that back, you bring back an entire catalog of information. You dig what I'm saying? You bring back a whole nother conversation. And so when you cut that off, you are excluding that part of history. You're excluding that conversation. You're allowing that stuff to die in the sands of time. You understand? And that's not right and exact.
All right, now the dance element, whether it was the male or the female, we know Big Daddy Kane had Scoob and Scrap. Heavy D had the two brothers. Yeah. The boys talk about that element that's not there anymore.
There is dancing in hip hop. Let's be clear. They Millie rocking. They hitting the nang. I mean, hitting the quan. They doing the nang. There is hip hop. There's dancing in hip hop. It might not be the kind of dancing that makes us proud as parents or what have you. You know, it's not something that we probably gravitate towards. But there's dancing in hip hop. And dancing is an essential element of hip hop, just like DJing and graffitiing. You know, breakdancing and dancing is essentially part of who and what we are. I was looking at some footage on Facebook the other day. They were in I believe it was either Kenya or Nigeria. You know, I know those are two drastically different places, but this was in the 50s. The footage was from the 50s, and they were breakdancing. They didn't have linoleum on the floor, nothing. They was doing backspins. They was breaking it down. I've seen a lot of videos to show our dances, the dances they had in the 50s and the 60s were replicas of the dances that were being done on the continent for time memorial. So it's in our DNA. It's in our DNA. You have to dance to awake that DNA. There's nothing more spiritual than dancing. You know what I'm saying? So yes, hip hop don't have no spirituality necessarily. You know what I'm saying? Other than God blesses the trappers. You know what I'm saying? Outside of that, there's not too much spirituality in hip hop, so we won't see so much dancing because the spirituality and the dancing go hand in hand. But again, let us be clear. There are dancers and dancing out there. Peace, God. You know what I'm saying? Let's be very clear. The children are into dancing. They out here dancing. You know what I mean? And that's a good thing. You know?
Now which brings us to Public Enemy, the energy and that voice of Brother Chuck D, and just bringing in the intros from the minister, from Khalid Abdul Muhammad, and the Terminator X with those beats that he came. Talk about Public Enemy.
Oh man, as a youth, you know what I'm saying? As a little one, I had a father in the home. So, I was secure in that aspect of having a male figure to look at and look up to, you know what I'm saying? But I looked at Chuck D as a father figure, you know what I'm saying? Like he was a booming, looming figure in my life because he spoke with so much conviction. He was, you could tell that he stood on principle and he was unwavering. And it was just hard body, like his rhymes just cut through the monotony of everything else that was going on at the time. You know? Like Chuck was that dude, you know what I'm saying? And that music was anthemic and it spoke to something in us. And I think that it was perfect for the time. There was a backdrop in society that allowed that music to seem a lot louder, to seem a lot bigger. You know, the revolutionary spirit was still alive and well, and a good percentage of our people to be supportive of that music. That spirit is not that much alive in our people anymore, so the music don't sound the same. It doesn't have the same effect, you know what I'm saying? It doesn't have the same backdrop, you know? But Chuck is a timeless classic. Public Enemy, shout out to Griff. Shout out to Flav. You know, I appreciated that blend. I didn't understand it as a child. I was confused as fuck. Like, what is this? I couldn't get it. You know, I didn't understand the drama and the comedy aspect of, one person being so serious and stern in their position and another person being the jokester. You know? But even though I didn't understand it, I felt that it worked for whatever it was working for because a little bit of comic relief, a little bit of enjoyment, you know what I'm saying? A little bit of party and bullshit. Hold on, it's Mr. Commodore, right? I was telling them how early in my life, because he asked me about Public Enemy, and I was like, to me it was kind of weird. I didn't understand how you had somebody that was so stern and serious like Chuck D, but then you had somebody like Flavor Flav with the comic relief, and I was like, it was very important, even in them days and times, to have comic relief. You know what I mean? To just be lighthearted, and because that's a true representation of who we are as a people. So people know me about, for my information and consciousness. When I get up in the morning, I go to your page though for comic relief because I need to be in that jovial mood. I need to know how you were taking the commentary of the moment and spinning it into comedy before I get all serious about it. Absolutely. So you see, that's Harlem. That's the energy of the shit that we talking about. We could speak about something and then it just pops up. This is the fertile soil that exists out here. I appreciate you. I don't want to slow you up. You know what I'm saying? Definitely. I see you doing your thing. I appreciate you. All right? Keep up the good work. You know? So you just had your Public Enemy moment. Chuck D, Flav. You know what I'm saying? So yeah, I mean that's how real it is. I don't know how else to give it up to y'all. Y'all be thinking that this shit is staged and what have you. But it's not. You just gotta be out here. You gotta be in it to win it. You gotta be part of this element. You know what I'm saying? These are some magical streets that we stand on, and when we open our mouth, we move mountains. Things happen. We open portals.